Alrighty, we are recording. Hello, lovelies. Hello to those of you here today, and also those of you who are watching the recording or listening to the recording. A shout out to you. So this week we are going to be looking in more depth at the representation of teacher as professional. So we went into quite a lot of detail in the lecture. Hopefully you've all had the opportunity to watch the lecture recording. I hope you weren't too freaked out by it. There are lots of responsibilities, both legal and ethical, when it comes to um, being a teacher, both a pre-service teacher and also a practicing teacher. And I think it's important to realize that this professionalism, this code of conduct, it actually starts now, even as a student. I'd also like to commend those of you who put some comments on our exit ticket, the exit ticket where you related what the clip that you saw, Mrs. Goncha's clip, to Melane's checklist. That was great. So looking at safety awareness considerations, diligence, and also mandatory reporting as well. So well done. If you haven't popped any comments on the Padlet, you might want to go and have a look at it, or add a comment as well. Okay, so by week 3, it can all start to get a little bit overwhelming. So especially if you haven't for some reason managed to keep up to date with your weekly readings, your activities, and I guess importantly, the assessment preparation. So like your 3 paragraphs for today. So how are we feeling? Can any of you relate to any of those cats on a scale of cat? Where are you at? Anyone number 5? Yeah. Number 7? Hopefully not number 8. So Karen says that she's number 7. Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually feeling a bit like that this week. Anyone else? Jody's number 3. Okay, yeah. Samantha's number 7. So starting to put the assessment task together and feeling a bit tired. Yeah. Excellent. Jody's excited. Good. Happy. Excellent. Really good to see that. So if you are feeling more like, I guess opposite to number 1, you're not feeling so laid back and cruisy, and you're feeling a bit like number 2, and that number 2 feeling just isn't going away, QUT counselling. I mentioned it in the lecture, but I have used QUT counselling. I actually said once, I've been to see them a few times, and they are so helpful. They really are, and they can help you with some good strategies and skills. So don't hesitate to go and have a chat to someone if you do need some support. Don't feel bad about it, because everyone's in the same book. So, and especially, I think as we were discussing before I pressed record, um, studying externally can be a bit of a lonely place. Um, you know, it's a very good, Zooming is a good opportunity to possibly make contacts with people, set up study groups, those sorts of things. If anyone really wants to do something like that, I'm happy to pass on details or assist you in developing those connections with each other, because I think it's really, really important. A lot of our internal students have, made some mates, people who have mutual understandings, I guess, and insights and beliefs about teaching, possibly from the same cohort, early childhood, primary or secondary. So it's, yeah, a good idea. Even though you're online, some of you may be interstate, and I know we've even got some international students, there are ways to connect. Okay. All right. So I guess as you would have learnt from watching the workshop video about the standards and also having a look at your reading, you should have a pretty good understanding of the standards. So they give us a common language to describe what best practice involves. So for teachers, if you're networking outside of your context, and also interacting with parents as well. So that common language. So they articulate what teachers are expected to know, what they're able to do, and at those 4 career stages. So we're looking at graduate, proficient, highly accomplished, and of course, lead teachers. So your focus as pre-service teachers now as a student, of course, is the graduate level. So in your first year as a beginning teacher, it will be at the proficient stage. So as you can see on the slide, the standards are grouped into 3 domains of teaching: professional knowledge, professional practice, and professional engagement. Any questions about the standards from watching the video?
Yeah, I had a question, sorry.
Yeah, please.
I was just wondering, I noticed that like this information is obviously in a textbook, and the way I designed out the for the assessment, the visual organizer, the graphic organizer,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't copy it down for like I just paraphrased and stuff. Do we is it an issue if we like if like all our data pretty much represent all the data on the slide, or I'm not too sure if that made any sense.
Sorry, so can you explain that in a different way? The data on the slide, what do you mean?
Like if so like all like for the whole for the teaching as a profession, if that information if we just had that information on that, would that be enough, or would we have to like add a bit more?
Sorry, I still don't understand what you mean. So when you say teacher is a professional.
Yeah, sorry, so like all the information concerning like professional knowledge, practice, and engagement. If we just had that information, like all the information on that slide, if we just had that on a visual representation for teaching as a profession, would that be enough, or
No,
would we have to like add a little bit more detail or anything like that?
no, these are what we're talking about today are the links to the professional standards. So this is just a very, very small part of it. So professional knowledge can be linked, as we're going to talk about, can be linked to teacher as learner. It can also be linked to teacher as professional, teacher as change agent, teacher as practitioner. So, you know, you really need to break down all those 4 areas with your specific statements, and then make links to the professional standards. I'm going to go into more detail about it as we go, Jake. So if you're feeling a little bit confused, I'll be able to clarify that as we go. And then if you want to, we can also then have a chat about it at the end if you need further information, or if you would like me to explain it in a different way. I'm very, very happy to do that. Okay.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Pleasure. Thank you for asking the question. All right. So based on the video and your notes from the reading, why do you think there is a need for the Australian professional standards? What are your thoughts? Even if you didn't watch the clip or do the reading, from what I've told you about the professional standards and from what you saw on the last slide, why do you think they might be important?
I think that the parents and the school trust the teachers with their children, so it's important to be reaching all of those guidelines in that sense. And also it helps the teachers to know what they can and can't do in regards to the well-being of the child. think.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Angela. We've also got guide teachers and pre-service teachers practice as a framework or a guide for protection for both teachers and students. So there's quite a heavy focus here on, of course, this week, teacher as professional, to improve the quality of teaching and enhance the status of the profession. Yeah, so yeah, for students. Excellent. Very good. So, you know, the standards have really influenced the profession. They provide consistent collective approach for teaching, bring about new levels of knowledge and skills. They're ambitious goals. I like that, Matthew. They are ambitious. And I think it's important that they are as well, because we're trying to set a very high benchmark here. So they also provide, I guess, a framework so that we can judge the success of our learning. They're the basis for professional goals. So all of our professional goals in our evaluation, informing that evaluation of practice, and our performance reviews. So each semester, teachers will need to do a performance review and to decide what they need to work on and what goals to set, and from those goals, what professional development they would then do. So there's this emphasis, as we know, on continual learning. And I guess they are also important in terms of promotion as well. If you wanted to move on to those new level, the other levels as well, like to at a leadership level, or possibly curriculum design. So as you can see within the standards, as you would have gone through them, there is a real focus on teacher as learner, teacher as practitioner, and also teacher as professional. Just checking the chat. As we play a critical role in helping students achieve success, it's our responsibility to set these standards so we don't lose the respect and trust of our students. Excellent. That's a really good point, Ben. And I guess that can extend to the respect and trust of parents as well. Very, very important. And it also gives, I think, the profession credibility, which is a very important factor. And it's directly linked to our professional identity as well. All right, so hopefully everyone had the opportunity to have a look at the clip, the note-taking PowerPoint in this week's tasks, and to do the suggested close reading of chapter 15 in Teaching Making a Difference. So the close reading and also the note-taking suggestions, so to use keywords and concepts, they were a suggestion to assist you with your comprehension, of course, and also retention of the important information for this week that hopefully would have enabled you to write that third paragraph. So reading 3 times, it's not going to be necessary in all cases, of course, but that note-taking and using keywords and concepts is something that you should be doing all the time. So it will also assist with the development of your teaching companion, your toolkit, and also, I guess, the development of your assessment task as well, and understandings around the assessment task. Are there any other strategies other than, a close reading it multiple times? Are there any other strategies that any of you use to assist you with your academic reading? Does anyone use chunking? Do you know what that is? Give me a thumbs up if you know what chunking is. Not sure? So chunking is reading small sections at a time. So this really helps with focusing on specific topics, specific areas, noting down keywords and paraphrasing important points from that particular paragraph, and also noting down references that you may want to use in your assessment. So chunking helps you to retain key information. So just reading a paragraph or a section at a time and focusing on that rather than reading through the entire article or book chapter. Anything else that anyone particularly uses or finds helpful? Some people, like to print it out and have dot points next to, so write dot points as they're reading, or write notes, or others highlight. I'm particularly fond of highlighting. Could you type the word in the chat? Chunking, is that the word? Chunking.
Yes, thank you, Angela.
No worries. So readings use the quack approach. So quote an important quote, ask a question, what are you unsure about? Comment on something interesting. Knowledge, how is this connected to previous knowledge? Good. Highlight and write on the side and draw arrows relating to different concepts. Excellent. So Maddie, are you into using idea webs and concept maps? Because that sounds like something that might be an extension of that. I find that very helpful. So if we're focusing on something in particular, have it in the center and then make those links and match them and join them up. I find that to be extremely helpful. Thanks for sharing that. Make notes into diagrams as they are easier to understand and unpack. Yeah, Molly. Yep. So you're a visual learner, and Venn diagrams. Excellent. So there's some really excellent ways to assist with your comprehension and your understanding. Very good. Okay. So we're going to move on to your 3 paragraphs. So as part of the weekly Blackboard consolidation activities over the past 2 weeks, you were asked to write some paragraphs, and this week you were asked to do your reading of chapter 15 and write a paragraph about teacher as professional. And in preparation for this Zoom session, I also asked you to make some links with the Australian Professional Standards. So this was the slide that you had in your preparation PowerPoint. So at this moment, you should have 3 paragraphs, and each paragraph, some of the statements, some of the sentences, you would have made specific links to the standards. And hopefully you will also all have a copy of the professional standards in front of you, or we also have a copy in the chat, which Ben has very nicely popped there for us. Any questions at all? Did anyone have any difficulty making links to the standards? Any comments about what they learnt in terms when they did make links to the standards? Was it a helpful process? Anyone? How did you find the process generally? No comments. Let me see. I'm going to ask someone. Molly. Hello. Did you get the opportunity to make links with the standards to the paragraphs?
Yes.
Yeah. How did you find it? Was it difficult?
I think it was like, it was like pretty like good to do, because then I realized what I wrote was like actually kind of like linked to what teachers actually do, I guess. So I figured out, oh, like that fits there. That's how Indigenous education fits in and stuff. So I think it was pretty helpful.
Excellent. It's the aim of the exercise was for you to become familiar with the standards, but also see how they link specifically to teachers' practice as well. Okay, so we're going to go through. If I'm going to call out your name, I'd like you to unmute your mic. And if you haven't made links, just tell me, sorry, Ange, I haven't had a chance to do it. So we're going to start with teacher as learner. So, very important emphasis on being lifelong learners. So teachers who need to keep abreast of current research and the many shifts that occur in education. So let's start with Angela. Did you manage to do a paragraph about this one, Angela?
Yeah, I did. Did you want me to read the paragraph or just the links that I made?
Just read one sentence, one statement that you were able to link to a standard, and if you could share the standard.
Yeah, so I had the teacher must also remain adaptable to the needs of the individual student, which was 1.5, differentiate teaching to meet the specific learning needs of students across the full range of abilities.
Okay, so can you repeat the sentence, please?
The teacher must also remain adaptable to the needs of the individual student.
Okay, excellent. So great. So you have noted 1.5, so differentiate teaching. I guess
Yeah.
you could also make links to 1.3. So if everyone has a look at 1.3 on the standards, students with diverse linguistic, cultural, religious, and socioeconomic backgrounds. So you would need to have a good knowledge of teaching strategies that are responsive to the learning strengths. So you might, thanks Angela, that was a really good example. You might want to see how you can link more than one as well. So that's excellent. So if you put that statement up, so Angela, are you thinking of what are you thinking of using for your representation, for your drawing?
Sorry, do you mean with the graphic organizer or
The graphic organizer. Have you chosen one yet?
No.
No.
Do we do it on all 4 of the representations?
Yes.
Okay. Wait, sorry, what was the question? Do I pick
Have you
a
decided?
certain one?
Have you chosen which graphic organizer you're going to use?
Oh, yes, sorry, I'm going to use a mind map.
A mind map. Okay, that mind maps seem to be quite popular. So, under teacher as learner, you would have one of your bubbles. You might have that statement in it, and you might have a reference, an in-text reference. You might have found some research about it, or it might be something that you've read about in the textbook, which refers to some specific research. So you would put the in-text reference there, and then you would also put that reference in your reference list in alphabetical order. And then you would put in brackets next to it the standard that you have just related to, or standards. So you would just need to put 1.5, 1.3, 1.5 in brackets. So that would show that you've made that link to the standard.
After the quote and this reference.
So it won't be a quote, it will be your paraphrasing. So I would not be using direct quotes. Direct quotes in any academic writing, you only use them if the quote is significant. If you really need, most of the time you would paraphrase it. It's only if the actual quote was significant. So in this situation, unless it's something really inspirational that you've read that someone has wrote, I would avoid using quotes.
No
Thank
worries.
you, Angela.
Thank you.
Well done. Molly.
Okay, for mine.
Yep. How about you could actually, it doesn't just have to be about teacher as learner. If you haven't got to teacher as learner, or you have something else that you would prefer to share from teacher as practitioner or as teacher as professional, you're welcome to share that as well, whatever you feel most comfortable with, Molly.
Okay, I don't know, I don't really mind.
Yeah, anyone.
Okay, I'll do it from just the professional one, I guess.
Yep.
I said teachers must be ethical in their pedagogical approach to ensure all students have access to education. And I did an example, e.g. considering Indigenous perspectives. And I said that links to 7.1 in the standards.
Yeah. Can you think of another one that it might link to? If we look in, let's have a look at standard 2.
And 2.4 as well.
Yeah. So it would link to both of those. That's excellent. I love the way that you've given an example as well, Molly. Really good. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
What are you thinking about using for your graphic organizer?
I was going to do a mind map as well, just because I think it's easy to show the difference between them and how
Yeah.
they.
And it gives you a little bit more room to play around with as well. Yeah. Okay, good. In my internal workshop yesterday, I asked students what they were using, and I started going around the room and everyone said mind map, mind map, mind map. And I said, okay, is there anyone that isn't using a mind map? And there was no one. So it is a popular one. Okay, let's have a look. Jake, would you like to share a statement?
Yeah, no worries at all. Oh, sorry, it's still the learner paragraphs.
Yeah, if you want to. Yeah, that's fine.
An aspect regarding to teach as a learner is to create an emotionally and physically safe environment for sufficient learning engagement, such as by allowing classroom functionality that influences positive communication.
Okay. And which standards did you relate that to?
I think I forgot to write it down.
That's okay. So
uh,
we're talking about maintaining student safety. So can you see which one that would be on the standards, looking at the standards? 4 point.
So maybe 4.2 or
Yeah.
4.1.
Yeah. So support student participation. Yep. All of those. Manage classroom activities, manage challenging behavior. So that's also part of student safety and well-being. 4.4, maintaining student safety. And I would also extend to 4.5, the responsible and ethical use of ICT as well. Yeah. So as you can see, there are lots of different, standards that you can relate to. Excellent. Jody, thanks very much, Jake. Jody.
Hi, Angela. Sorry about that. I still not finished the paragraph
Okay.
yet.
That's fine. If you haven't finished, not a problem at all. Thank you for telling me that. Alfie.
Sorry.
Not a problem. Alfie?
Oh, me? Aoife?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. So I said teachers as practitioners are also always reflecting on themselves and their own work, therefore learning and incorporating new ideas into the classroom.
Mhm.
And I connected that one to 6.2.
6.2, engage in professional learning. Can you read out the statement again, please?
Yes, sorry. Teachers as practitioners are always reflecting on themselves and their own work, therefore learning and incorporating new ideas into the classroom.
Okay, so incorporating new ideas. So you could also possibly include 7.4, engage with professional teaching networks and broader communities. What do you think?
Oh yeah, that could work. Yeah.
Yeah. 6.4, apply professional learning and improve student learning, demonstrate an understanding of the rationale for continued professional learning and the implications for improved student learning.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So quite a few different links. And by going through and looking at the standards in depth, it really gives you a good understanding of each of those, teacher as learner, teacher as practitioner, teacher as professional, that it does reach across all of the standards. Benjamin Shriver. Ben?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, Benjamin Scriven, by the way.
Shriven, sorry.
It's all good. all good. So I got teacher as professional.
Mhm.
Just quickly find it. So I just got to open up my APSTs again. Okay, so to link it, so teachers must engage in professional learning
Yeah.
and improving practice.
Mhm.
So they have to understand like the relevant sources which they need to use,
Okay.
such as like digital, digital devices, which links to APST 6.2.
Engage in professional learning and improve practice. So you're saying that they need to have a knowledge and understanding of those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also you need to be able to engage professionally with parents and carers
Yep. so
sensitively and
7.3.
effectively, which is 7.3. Yeah,
Yeah. Excellent. Good.
which is probably one of the most important ones.
Okay. So the fact that you're saying that that's probably one of the most important ones, that's good because you're establishing what's important to you. So your beliefs about practice. That's excellent. So we've got a question here. So teacher as learner doesn't have to just be linked to the first two standards because it's in the knowledge domain. No, definitely not. Sammy, so if we look at, well, 6.2, we could Ben, related that to teacher as professional, but he could also relate that to teacher as learner as well, engage in professional learning and improve practice. And so it's really important to see that they all overlap. There's lots and lots of connections to each of them. Let's see, Matthew, would you like to share? Matthew Deegan?
Yep.
Thank you, Matthew.
Good work on the last name, by the way. Yeah, people usually get it wrong, so nice.
I try.
Very good. I've got something about practitioner representation.
Mhm.
So practical development can be further strengthened through community of practice, where teachers can work collaboratively to share expertise and gain additional insights and cultivate a greater collective pedagogical knowledge.
Excellent. So which standards did you relate that to?
A few. So I thought 6.3.
6.3, we've got engage with colleagues, improve practice. Excellent.
6.4.
Yeah. Apply professional learning and improve student learning.
And 7.4.
Yep. Engage with professional teaching, networks and broader communities. Yeah.
And maybe 3.6 as well. I thought that could be applicable.
3.6, we've got evaluate and improve teaching programs. Yeah. And you could probably go with 3.7 too. Engage parents, carers in the educative process. So if we're looking at visually looking at your graphic organizers, so you're going to have that statement there. Let's say, for example, you've chosen the mind map. You'll have that in a little bubble, possibly with a few dot points underneath it to expand it a little more. And then you're going to have a reference there underneath it. Now, you have mentioned community of practice, so you would probably go and have a look at the research of Etienne Wenger. So in terms of communities of practice. So you would have a little in-text reference in that bubble, and then you would then also have that reference into the your reference list as well. Not every single statement is going to have an in-text reference. You may not be able to find one, or possibly it's not something that you would reference. Maybe it's something that you have seen or heard or even wondered possibly. So not every single statement needs to have a reference. Now, Karen, you're saying, I'm not sure which standard should link to my content. Which, can you read out your statement, please?
Yeah, sure. So I share the teacher as learner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think we need to improve and have the growth mindset always. The new technologies and pedagogies we need to learn. the most meaningful point is that we need to learn how to prepare our students to have the ability to easily grasp the new technologies and apply those to fulfill their knowledge in the unknown future.
Okay, so there's lots about ICT there. Can anyone help her with can anyone assist Karen with what standard she might use? 4.5, yep. So use ICT safely, responsibly, and ethically. And I think you also, you talk quite a bit about understanding how students learn. So you would be looking at 1.2. Possibly differentiation as well. So 1.5. So you're talking about making sure that you differentiate for individual students. Does that help?
Yeah,
Karen?
thank you.
Yeah. And you let me see, who else have we got? Maddie, would you like to
I
contribute?
don't have my paragraphs with me.
Not a problem.
They
all.
were at home. They're not in the work yet.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I just took a chance. I thought maybe that might have been the case. What about Emmy? Emmy, are you able to share a statement?
Yeah, I can share mine.
Thank you.
I had really similar to Matthew's actually.
Okay.
I had collaborating with other teachers, students, parents, and the community allows new perspectives into teaching, which encourages growth. And then I had to 6.3,
Mm-hmm.
7.3,
and
7.3.
7.3. So engage with the parents and carers. So understand strategies for working effectively, sensitively, and confidentially with parents. So you could have also thought, I think, about 3.7, engage parents and carers in the educative process. So describe a broad range of strategies for involving parents. So they're both very similar, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing. Joey, have you got a statement to share?
Hi, I chose teacher as practitioner.
Yep.
And teachers are always actively collaborating with different parties like students, parents, school, and the community to gain better resources and more opportunities for students' learning.
Excellent.
So I link it to 7.3, engage with the parents or career.
Carers, yep.
7.4, engage with professional teaching networks and broaden community.
Yep.
And 3.4,
maintain
use resources.
Okay, good. Excellent. Very good.
And sorry, can I ask a really quick question? In terms of the standards, do you have a limit of how many? Because again, I was similar to Emmy, and I think it was Ben as well. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 standards that I reckon I can apply. Do you want us to cut it off at a certain point? Do you want us to have a maximum of 3, or just keep adding as many as possible?
I think 3 is fine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Even though it could be 7, just pick maybe the most relevant 3. Is that the best way?
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you.
And I guess in your 1,000 word statement, you would make a comment about that, you can link standards. So say, for example, if you're talking, you've chosen teacher as learner as your focus area for your 1,000 words, you would say that you can make links, as both as you have made the comment between those different areas. And that shows that as teachers, we do make those connections in our practice.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Got to be across a lot.
What's that, sorry?
We've got to be across a lot.
We do have to be across a lot. That is correct. Yeah. Okay, let me see. Isabella, did you want to share a statement? You having trouble unmuting?
No, I've just got construction at my house happening at the moment, but I'm sure that will be fine.
That's all right. I've got
So-
tree loppers.
Oh,
Not at my
perfect.
house.
Our new kitchen's going in, so it's very exciting. And I'm
Oh.
so sorry I was late to it because I was helping them carry the equipment, like the stuff in, and anyways, I had to be in out of the rain, so
Yeah,
we're
not a
running
problem.
around doing that. My statement, let me just grab it up. I'm so sorry.
Don't apologize. It's all good.
Okay, so is there a certain learner, practitioner, or professional, which one you'd prefer, or
How
are we?
about we go for professional? Do you have one in the professional area?
Let me see. I have written a professional teacher must uphold high standards of ethical practice that directly derives from their duty of care and moral code of ethical practices.
Mhm.
And that relates to 6, 7, and 2.4. I sort of just did the variety of them because it does relate to all the different sections within that
Yeah.
section 6 and
Okay.
7.
Good. And so then as possibly dot point underneath that statement, you would be saying integrity, dignity, responsibility, respect, social justice, and care. So as we talked about in the lecture yesterday, that's excellent. Very good. And then you might want to use a reference to that code of conduct as well, and then reference that in your reference list.
Perfect. That sounds good to me.
Excellent.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy.
Anyone else just champing at the bit to share? All right, I'm going to go down the bottom. Annika. You there, Annika? Okay. Kevin. All right. Dolores. As I said, even if you don't have your paragraph, just a polite little message in the chat box, or possibly just unmute your mic and say, sorry, Ange, your mic isn't working. Beautiful. Thank you very much, Annika. I appreciate that. Very respectful. Okay, let's have a look, I think, in terms of teacher as practitioner. We haven't really covered that one as much. So I think it involves identifying effective age-appropriate pedagogies. So we'd be looking at 1.1, so physical, social, and intellectual development and characteristics of students, and 1.2, understanding how students learn. So teacher as practitioner is very much about that professional knowledge and professional practice. It's also about, as I think someone said, differentiating for diversity. So I'd be looking at 1.3, 1.4, 3.1 as well, because you'd be establishing challenging learning goals, possibly 2.3 as well. So effective practitioner, they use a balance of approaches. And I think I've said this many times in the lectures and also in the workshops, based on their deliberate, purposeful, and thoughtful decision making. Very important in terms of teacher as practitioner. Would anyone like to have a go at what standards that might be linked to? So basing their approaches on deliberate, purposeful, and thoughtful decision making. Any thoughts? Let's have a look at standard 3. 3.2, plan, structure, and sequence learning. Molly says 3.4, select and use resources. So demonstrate knowledge of a range of resources, including ICT that engage students in their learning. So of course, that will also connect to understanding individual students as well, understanding how they learn. So 1.2. So remembering, I think that's a really important point to put in for teacher as practitioner. So making clear that you understand that every decision about teaching and student learning is deliberate and purposeful. 3.6 for Emma. Excellent. Evaluate improved teaching programs. So evaluating is fundamental, and we discussed this, and I highlighted that when we were talking about the Fishbone template. So again, evaluation can go across teacher as professional, teacher as learner, and also teacher as practitioner in terms of evaluating all of our practices. So can we think of any standards that would specifically relate to evaluation? I'll give you a chance to have a look. So constantly evaluating our practices and approaches and learning from this evaluation. So those of you at home, 6.3, thanks, Maddie, engage with colleagues and improve practice. So again, relating that to professional learning as well. What about 6.2? .6, so evaluate improved teaching programs. We've also got assessing and providing feedback, so 5 as well. Assessing student learning, demonstrating understanding of assessment strategies. So that's about evaluating your practices and student learning as well. Excellent. So I can see that you guys are, those of you that have done your paragraphs, have a pretty good understanding of what that is going to involve now. And you probably also have realized that you can work backwards to a certain degree as well. So from the standards to get ideas and possibly think about gaps that you might have as well. So if you're struggling to find something as teacher as professional, for example, or teacher as learner, you might want to look at the standards and see if that can assist you. So you're then going to look for research to provide depth and support for these statements. Some of you, you may start with the research and then work to statements and then breaking down and linking it to the standards, or you may go the other way. So you're going to access research, things that you've read in your textbook, and you may find specific research from your textbook, and then you might access that research from the QUT databases. You might also reference research that you have found in the readings, or possibly that you have sourced yourself as well. So there are lots of options for sourcing research. Very important that you make sure that it is quality research, scholarly research, so research that is recent, so fairly current. When Angela's saying, when you say readings, do you mean the textbook? Yep, the textbook is, we will so you had to read chapter 15, and from within chapter 15, they would have cited particular research. So you would then look at the end of chapter 15 and you'll see the sources that have been referenced there, and then you would use those in your own reference list and in text referencing. But readings as well, you'll actually have journal articles that we're going to recommend you read in future weeks as well. So you're able to reference those. And I will also point you towards the slides. Sometimes you'll find references that I've referred to, or studies that I've referred to in the lectures. So in the PowerPoints, lecture PowerPoints, you could also refer to the references on the final slide as well. Very good question. can we include theorists? Yes. So you're talking, Sammy, you're talking seminal research. Does anyone know what seminal research is? So that would be foundational research. So we'd be looking at Vygotsky, we'd be looking at Bronfenbrenner, we would be looking at Piaget. So important theorists that are foundational for specific understandings and approaches to teaching. Good question. What's considered current in educational research? Another good question. I would say in the last 10 years, it would depend, I guess, what you're looking at. So ICT, for example, there's lots of really current research. So I'd be looking within the last 5 years, possibly. It depends how much research is around. So really, it comes down to how well you do your data searching. And this is something that I think if you're not confident, if you're not comfortable doing this, I think you need to go to HiQ and organize a session to upskill there. So as we said last week, you can seek assistance from HiQ, Student Success Group. You can book an hour session and they'll go through. You can even take a copy of the task sheet and they'll help you. A really good resource and one that your fees are paying for. So I would very much encourage you to access that. Does that answer your question, Matthew? Is that what you meant?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah. So I wouldn't go outside of 10 years, really. But, you know, whenever I start doing my searches, I always start within the last 5 years. But if you're having trouble within the last 5 years, you can then go further afield. All right. So I just want to go through. This morning I went and had a look at the Padlet on Blackboard with all of the questions about the assessments task. Was a little bit surprised with some of the questions because a lot of them we have gone through some of that, and like that's fine. I'm happy to, you know, Mia is very happy to answer any questions that come up, and I'm happy to clarify and elaborate where is necessary. So I just want to go back to basics in a way and do a bit of a check with this first assessment task to make sure that you have an accurate understanding and you're well on the way to completing it. So essentially the task is asking you to map out the first 4 weeks of learning and understanding in the unit. So you're going to visually depict with your graphic organizer how teachers have been represented in each of those 4 areas that we're going to explore. Teacher as learner, teacher as practitioner, teacher as professional, and next week we're going to look at teacher as change agent in the lecture and in the workshops. So the visual representation, it can be one of the graphic organizers we've looked at or a creative response of your choosing. My advice is to keep it as simple as possible. You don't want to make it difficult for yourself, and clearly it needs to be understandable for your tutor to grade you as well. Remembering that you're going to be graded on how well you communicate the content in your drawing. You're not going to be marked on the drawing itself or your drawing skills. So the drawing is designed to provide a stimulus to discuss your personal response around. So as I've said, the drawing needs to include in-text referencing, outlining where you got your information. You're also going to need to make links to the Australian Professional Standard, exactly like we did in the workshop today. Any questions yet before I move on to part B? Is everyone feeling comfortable with their understandings at this point? Excellent, Very good. So I encourage those of you who are listening to the recording, if you do have any questions, if you're an online student, you're welcome to email me. If you are an internal student, you would email your specific tutor. Or you could also post the question on the Padlet as well. Now, I have mentioned this before. Lots of times there are student chat rooms and Facebook pages where you all hang out and share things. I'm sure all of you are extremely capable. I'm trying to be nice about this. You're all extremely capable and have wonderful ideas, but when it comes to the assessment task, I would not take the word of your fellow students. They may have the wrong idea. I would go to the source. I think that's really important. So if you do have a question or someone else has a question, direct them to their tutor. I certainly don't want you to get the wrong idea. And this is when students do fail this assessment, it's because they have the wrong idea. So it's important that you have a good understanding right from word go. All right. So by now, you should be finalizing the kind of graphic organizer you want to use. As I said, the idea maps, concept maps seem to be very popular, but this is a very individual decision based on your personal learning style and your ways of thinking. So the use of graphic organizers, it's become an extremely common tool used in schools. So very, very helpful in supporting students in making their thinking visible. So visible to their peers, visible to their teachers, and it really, it supports engagement and also teacher assessment of learning. So it helps them understand student misconceptions, their prior knowledge, their reasoning ability, especially when we're looking at like the idea webs, connecting ideas, or looking at a Venn diagram, how they compare and contrast. So it really makes their degrees of understanding more visible. And this is hard to do if we assess on a test. But actually seeing how they think and visualizing that is such an important way for teachers to understand, and also to then address any challenges that students may have, but wonderfully to challenge them further and extend their thinking as well. So it's a fabulous tool, and more it's used now. So Ben's saying, when you say draw, can we virtually make it on Word? Yes, you can. We're going to go through this in a little minute. Good question, Ben. Okay. So this is what, if you were looking at a mind map, this is what it would look like. So representations of teachers in the middle. Then, like I showed in the example in the lecture when I used my own example, so teacher as professional, teacher as change agent, teacher as practitioner. So this is just very basic. You would have a lot more bubbles like you saw in my example that I shared in the lecture. Any questions about that design? And then you'd have your reference in here, or and links to the professional standards where applicable. Does that answer your question, Ben? Sort of. So this is another example. As you can see, there's images here. That's not necessary. You're not being graded on images. It's on the content. So if you don't have enough room for images, then you don't need to use them. Some people just like to use images. So there are some examples. Karen says Coggle is good. Yeah, you've used Coggle. So we've got MindMaster, Coggle, Visio, AO. I personally would just use Word, but it's up to you. If you are someone that likes to physically draw, you can physically draw a map your detailed map in very neat writing so we can read it, and take a screenshot of it. I am happy for you to do that if you're that way inclined. Any questions? So some of these, obviously there is a cost involved, so you don't have to use these particular platforms. You don't have to pay for one, you can just use Word. All right, we've got the Fishbone template, so that's kind of what it would look like if that's what you're using. I did get some Fishbone templates last year, but very few. I think the main issue is trying to fit enough information in those little spaces. Is anyone thinking of using the Fishbone template? It's very organized. Some people feel more comfortable that they can write it out very clearly or type it out clearly. Like you could make those boxes bigger, I guess, if you wanted to. Then we have the Venn diagram, so what that would look like if that's the one that you chose. Again, I had a few Venn diagrams. And then another one is a brace map. And then a circle map, so that's what the circle map would look like with each of the representations. Pretty hard to make links. If you wanted to make links to each other, to each of them, that would be a bit tricky. Could use arrows and things, I guess. Or, you can be creative, remembering that you don't have to use those particular graphic organizers. You can, speech bubbles or handprints or whatever you want to use if you want to be creative. Remembering that it's not the actual drawing that you're going to be graded on. It's the content. I'm not going to say that again, I promise. I'm repeating myself. It's just important because I know some people want to, spend huge amounts of time making it look beautiful, and it's just not necessary. Okay. So part B is your personal teaching statement. So you need to choose one, so just one of the representations. So it would be teacher as learner, or teacher as practitioner, or teacher as professional, or teacher as change agent. So then you would explore your chosen representation in more depth, in more detail. So you would have your representation on your mind map, your statements, your dot points, and how you've linked them to the standards and your references. Then you would unpack that, and you would use academic writing. You would organize it into paragraphs. You may want to have headings if you want to. You would use first person language. So this is about your beliefs, your practices. So your future teaching. So it's about your understanding. So first person would be appropriate here. You would use APA, in-text referencing, and APA referencing in your reference list. So it will have a clear structure, and I think on the task sheet it's allocated 250 words for each of the 4 questions. So it's definitely a statement about your developing beliefs about teaching. So you're starting to develop your understandings of beliefs in year 1. They're going to expand and change possibly as you moved into your professional experience for early childhood next semester, then for primary and secondary next year. Then you'll do more and more placements, and this statement will develop even more until your final year. In your final placement, when you do your QTPA, your teacher performance assessment, and part of this is your completed teaching statement. When I say completed, this is completed for the assessment task. It will grow and morph as you become a practicing teacher, believe me. So it's something that will constantly change from the more and more you learn about teaching and the more you experience. But this is the beginning. This is when you're first starting to think about it. And importantly, I think you need to remember, although you're focusing on just one area, you may actually find, as we have today when we're looking at the standards, you might mention other areas as well, because they are intertwined in certain ways. So again, drawing for referencing, drawing on suggested readings and content from the unit, research that you've found yourself, and also making links to those Australian professional standards. Any questions? Just checking the chat. Again, if those of you watching the recording have questions, please email your tutor or write them on the Padlet. Nothing yet?
Sorry, Angela, I was just wondering, with the first one, how has this representation shaped you? Obviously, we haven't done any placement yet, so is that just how it shows what we want to do when we do placement?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So also, you may have come to the course influenced by, what you've seen in the media, influenced by cultural aspects, influenced by people that have been teachers. And this may have shaped your ideas in some way. Some of these may be positive and some may be negative. And you may have changed your understandings through, talking to your colleagues, coming to lectures and workshops. So, yeah. How has this representation shaped you? So shaped your understandings. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Anything else before we move on to the final part, part C, the oral component? Just checking the chat.
I have about the structure, how for part B.
Yeah.
Like, can we do like headings, like we get like the main idea of the question as headings and then write the answer under it? Or
you can do that. Yeah, I'm happy for you to have headings. I like headings.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question. Okay, anyone else? These are all excellent questions. Well done. Okay, so part C, this is the oral articulation of your 1,000 words. So in week 6 Zoom workshop, you're all going to be attending because you're going to be placed in pairs in breakout groups, and you will share your personal teaching statement. This is very brief. It will take 5 minutes. Well, you're meant to do, I think, speak for 3 to 4 minutes. And it's very casual. It's not graded. So you would be using a tag feedback form as a prompt. So you would be thinking about telling your partner something that you liked about their statement. You would ask a question and possibly give a suggestion as well. So it's a participation activity. So we're easing you into this because I know I think in another unit, you have to do some oral presentations. So this will be a bit of a practice for you. It's the beginning of many oral presentations that you're going to have to complete over the next 4 years. So lots and lots of them. Some will be you would have to make a video responding to something, or you would actually have to present an oral in class. It's all preparation for your teaching practice. For your QTPA, there's an oral component in that as well, where you have to present to a panel of 3 academics your professional teaching statement and respond to some questions. So the more opportunities that you get to do this kind of oral, the better. I've got a chat here. Okay, someone's saying that they found it quite difficult to do teacher as practitioner because they found it so similar between teacher as learner. Make that comment. You know, there are lots of connections. So it's not a struggle. I would be just writing what you think, what you feel, because really you can't be wrong in this because it's your personal opinion. So a very good point though. I would definitely be not struggling. If you're finding that there are similarities, note them down. That doesn't matter at all. Did anyone else find that as well? Yeah, I think when we were sharing our links to the professional standards, we were noting that there are a lot of similarities. So thank you for that question. So my advice is to take every single opportunity to discuss your professional beliefs. Very important, with your family, with your flatmates, anyone. So attendance in week 6 will be necessary to complete this task. So those of you who are listening to the recording, you will need to attend in week 6. So you have the opportunity to attend. There's the Thursday evening Zoom session, and there's also this Zoom session as well. So Cynthia has one on Thursday evening. So you have 2 choices. Any questions? All right, some tips. If you're confused about the task or you have specific questions, I cannot stress enough how important it is to get it sorted now. Ask your tutor for assistance. Don't rely on your peers for advice. Make sure that the deadline for submission is 11:59 p.m. on April the 11th, so you don't leave it to the last minute. Get it done in the afternoon, especially your first submission. If you have issues, QUT help desk will still be available then if you're having any issues with uploading it to the portal. It may take a little time, but it shouldn't be an issue. Just make sure that you have some, give yourself plenty of time. Any questions about submission?
Yeah, sorry, if there's any, does it open at a certain time, like, or can you submit it like a couple of days earlier or something like that?
Submit it a couple of days earlier if you wanted to, and you can also submit it. So you can submit it and then you'll get a similarity report and you can check that and then you can resubmit as well. I think you get 3 chances to submit.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
Any questions about that? That was a very good question. Excellent. All right, so technology tips. There are lots and lots of support at QUT to help you with your assignments. So technology support from HiQ. You know, if you're having difficulty, if you're, you know, it's too big, you've got your mind map and it's really huge, go in and talk to HiQ. See if they can assist you in finding a way to make it smaller. There might be a way to do that. So visit HiQ and make sure that you've got everything sorted. You can book in with someone to go through the task or to help with the database searching or academic writing. So I would definitely use this, especially in first year. In the assessment folder, you'll also find links and clips and support for your writing and referencing as well, if you were just wanting to do a bit of a brush up in terms of your referencing. And SiteWrite is the place to go to check out APA as well. So we're using APA 7. I do occasionally get panicked students emailing me like at 11:45 at night saying, I can't work out how to upload my assignment. Don't email me. Don't email your tutors because we'll be sound asleep then. You need to make sure that you get in early so you can get that support from IT if you need it. Any questions? Okay. So I want you to have a think about what you've learnt today. I want you to think about a takeaway from the lesson and I want you to type it into the chat. One thing that, 3 years from now, you think it's going to be helpful to you. So I'll give you some time to think about that and do that. So next week we will be exploring the final representation. So that will be teacher as change agent. So that's the fourth one, will be teacher as change agent. So I really want you to make sure that you complete the activities ready to participate. So there's going to be quite a bit of information around resilience as well. And I'd like you to do the reading and I'd like you to do the activities because it's really going to support your understandings. Okay, what have we got coming through? Be more familiar with the Australian professional standards for teachers. Yep, that's a really good one. The most obvious one, without a good understanding of the Australian professional standards, it's going to be quite difficult because they're linked to your professional experiences. So your report that you're going to get from a professional experience will be around each of those standards and your understanding of the standards. So that's a very good one from Joey. Thank you. Anything else from anyone? Yeah, so the standards, they're not theoretical, I guess. They're a real world framework for practice. That's a really good point, Matthew. So if we do talk about that theory practice divide, the standards very much are based on practice. Of course, there is theory behind them all, but in terms of your day-to-day practice, that is what teachers need to know and be able to do. Their strategies, their practices, and directly linked to the code of ethics as well, and to safety. So, and of course, importantly, to diversity too, which we're going to be talking about a little bit later. Okay. We've got a few more coming in. Any questions while those chats are coming in? Final questions?
I have a question. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just regarding the readings that we have to do each week.
Yeah.
I noticed that on one part it said that we had to do the teaching in a new era reading of chapter 11, I think it was, for this week, but then it didn't say it in the Zoom part. Does that make sense?
Which part did it say that on?
It says it in Blackboard under the reading section. It says each week what readings you have to do. And it said do reading chapter 15 this week of the textbook and do reading of chapter 11 of the other textbook.
Where did it say do the reading in chapter 11? That wasn't.
It's this section of the website. I'm not sure what one it is, but I don't know if you can see that sort of layout. And it says chapter in represent teacher as professional.
Oh, okay. You're referring to the overview.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I guess what that's telling you is that I guess if you are interested in taking it further, Nikki, there is information in the other textbook in chapter 11. I think if you have a look on the lecture slides, I did refer to that particular chapter in terms of Melane's checklist. So I think a lot of students have gone then and had a look at that chapter. So, it's, you've got both textbooks. Lots of students have been doing the prescribed readings, for example, in chapter 15, and then they will go and have a look at what is in the other textbook as well. Of course, you've got that in terms of your referencing for your assessment task as well. So I guess there are double. I'm sorry.
Do you need both textbooks? I just haven't got mine. It hasn't been delivered yet, that's all.
Oh,
so I just
okay.
wanted to make sure I did need it.
Well, there will be readings from both. I would advise you to have both textbooks, but right at this moment, if you haven't got it, if it's being delivered, don't stress. It's not the end of the world? Good question. Thank you, Nikki. So we've got the Australian Professional Standards link in many ways and backs up the why. Excellent. Very good. Okay. Any final questions before we finish up?
If I can, I would just like to ask, you know how we printed out that meme of different representations of teachers?
Yeah.
In part A, does that need to be included anywhere? So do we need to talk about the representation of a teacher through a student's eyes or parents' eyes and things like that? Or is it more so to do with just the Australian standards in that section?
No, you don't actually, you could include the meme if you want to. As I said, you don't have to have visuals, but I would be thinking about how teachers are represented in the media, in social media and those sorts of things. So that's unit content. So it's what we have discussed in class. So I would be referring to that, Isabella. Yeah, very good question.
I just had, it's more about like the tutorials.
Yeah.
So I was originally emailed the tutorial time for Thursday, but is it okay for me to be doing this one because I work normally on a Thursday? Is that okay to be attending?
I'm not sure, Angela. I apologize for that. I don't know why you were sent that email. So those of you that are listening, you can attend either Zoom tutorial. So it depends. And like you could attend this one this week and you could attend the Thursday evening one next week. It's very flexible,
Awesome.
online learning. It needs to be as flexible and as equitable as possible. So so you've got in terms of your PowerPoints, each week you have your PowerPoint that you need to go through and watch clips and respond to particular questions and things, just to make it so that when we come into our Zoom, it all flows smoothly and there's no interruptions. If you want to access the full PowerPoint, that's just access the internal one.
Okay, awesome.
So,
Thank you.
So each tutor will have a different take on the workshop, but basically the content is exactly the same in all of them. It will just be delivered a different way. Obviously, it will be different online as it is in face-to-face. Good question. Excellent.
You.
Anyone else? Okay, I am going to turn the recording off. I'll say goodbye to those of you watching at home, and please make sure you contact us if you have any questions. Thank you.